yeah, I think the whole valley, the whole of the state is excited about the new NBA season. I, for example, can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm like, let's do it again. Let's go all the way up there. Let's get a ring. Good morning, folks. If you're just joining us this morning, thank you. We're going to give others maybe 2-3 more minutes, something like that, so they can join us as well. And then we'll start morning scoop this morning. Matthew, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Boston right now.
How's the weather over there?
It's beautiful and not such an early start for me either. I have a lot of empathy for the 7 a.m. Webcast everyone's doing.
Yeah.
Everybody's up early in Phoenix so they can beat the heat.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's paradise, what, 8-9 months a year? Then we have hell, Morning again, folks. Thank you for joining us. If you're just joining us, we're going to wait maybe a minute, 2 minutes, something like that, so others can join us as well. And then we're going to start the morning scoop. It's 8:01 in the morning. I think we're going to start. Good morning, everybody. My name is Luigi Del Puerto. I'm the publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times, which covers state government and public policy in Arizona. If you don't have a subscription, let me know. Email me, chat, text me. I'll get you squared away. And thank you again for joining us for today's morning scoop. We will talk about the nascent sports betting industry in Arizona and what residents should expect in the coming days. And as you know, the Department of Gaming allocated licenses to tribes and sports teams in the last few days. But first, I want to thank our sponsors this morning for engaging with us this way. Without their support, we would not be able to hold public policy discussions such as the one we are holding today. I want to thank FanDuel, which started out as a backyard Texas brainstorm among 5 co-founders. And it is now one of the driving forces in a multi-billion-dollar industry and among the premier gaming destinations in the United States. FanDuel started at the 2009 SXSW Interactive Festival when the founding team focused its efforts on changing the game in fantasy sports. Today, FanDuel has more than 12 million registered users, and then Arizona FanDuel is partnering with the Phoenix Suns. Also sponsoring this discussion is DraftKings. DraftKings is a digital sports entertainment and gaming company created to fuel the competitive spirit of sports fans with products that range across daily fantasy, regulated gaming, and digital media. Headquartered in Boston and launched in 2012 by Jason Robbins, Matt Kalish, and Paul Lieberman, DraftKings is the only US-based vertically integrated sports betting operator. DraftKings, which is live with mobile and or retail sports betting in 14 states, is an authorized gaming operator of the NBA and MLB and is this official sports betting partner of the NFL. Also an official betting operator of PGA Tour and the official betting operator of UFC. DraftKings is partnering with TPC Scottsdale in Arizona. And finally, sponsoring this scoop is BetMGM. BetMGM is a partnership between MGM Resorts International and Ncaa Holdings, a collaboration that is, of course, revolutionizing sports betting and online gaming in the United States. BetMGM is the exclusive sports betting division of MGM, both online and in MGM casinos nationwide. It is also the headline brand for online casino gaming alongside sister brands such as the Borgata Online in New Jersey, the Party Casino, and Party Poker. Again, I want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring today's morning scoop. We have a great panel this morning. Joining us is Matthew Kalish, who is the president of DraftKings North America. Matthew is president, as I mentioned, of DraftKings North America, and he co-founded DraftKings in 2011, and he is accountable for all North America revenue, bringing together all marketing, operations, and related analytics functions for the company. In his role, Matthew is responsible for the overall operations of DraftKings sports betting, fantasy sports, and iGaming products, as well as the recently launched DraftKings Marketplace, the NFT ecosystem designed by DraftKings for mainstream accessibility. Matthew, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Also joining us this morning is Dominic Roscoe, who is the Chief Strategic Marketing Officer of the Gila River Gaming Enterprises Incorporated. Dominic started his career in the gaming and entertainment industry 20 years ago when he discovered his passion for the fast-paced gaming industry. His career in marketing began as Director of Marketing of Laguna Development Corporation from 2006 to 2014. He was promoted then to Assistant General Manager in 2014. He also served as a board member for the New Mexico Tourism Department and the Cibola County Chamber of Commerce, becoming the board's youngest president. In 2006, he was hired as Corporate Vice President of Marketing for Gila River Hotel and Casinos, and then promoted to Chief Strategic Marketing Officer of the gaming enterprise in 2017. He successfully positioned the enterprise as the market leader for strategic Arizona sports sponsorships with organizations such as the Diamondbacks, Cardinals, Coyotes, Suns, and of course, ASU Athletics, uniting 5 major sports teams into a cohesive sports retail promotional sub-brand. Gila River Gaming Enterprises, of course, is the largest gaming destination in Metro, or one of the largest gaming destinations in Metro Phoenix. Dominic, thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
Also joining us this morning is Jason Rowley, who's recently concluded a very successful, very exciting season as the Phoenix Suns president. I want to say, Jason, what a ride. Let's do it again this year, huh? Or in the next season. As president, Jason is responsible for managing all business operations of the Suns and oversees the club's interest in the management of Talking Stick Resort Arena, the WNBA Phoenix Mercury, the NBA Development League, Northern Arizona Suns, and the Legends Entertainment District, as well as other affiliated entities. Jason previously served as the team's chief operating officer, as well as its senior vice president and general counsel. Jason began his career in 2001 with the law firm of Snell and Wilmer in Phoenix. And after graduating from the University of Arizona, he joined the United States Navy and served as an intelligence analyst with the Commander 3rd Fleet Intelligence Division until his honorable discharge in 1998. At that point, he went back to law school. Jason, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And finally, joining us this morning is Representative Jeff Winiger, who chairs the Arizona Commerce Committee, and he is one of the architects of the sports betting law passed this year. He's part owner and vice president of the Arizona Sandwich Shops, the Dilly's Deli, and Floridino's Pizza and Pasta. Prior to joining the legislature, he served as a councilman and later as vice mayor of the Chandler City Council. He was elected to the House in 2015, and he also served on the board of the Child Help State Advisory Board. Representative Winiger, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
As I mentioned, we have a nascent sports betting industry in Arizona, and I believe fantasy sports already started this weekend. Is that correct, Matthew, for Arizona?
Yeah, we actually just went live with daily fantasy sports, and then the sports betting platform will be going live on September 9th.
And again, just and thank you for that. And just to be clear, there are no limits to the franchises for fantasy sports. Is that correct, Representative Winger?
Yeah, that's correct. Anybody can get a license. There's also, even if they exist, I heard that they do on the East Coast, you can get kiosks for fantasy sports, and those can be in service clubs, so American Legions and VFWs and things. But yeah, fantasy sports is live, and hopefully some people, especially with the upcoming weeks, will take advantage of it.
Perfect. And Jason, are we getting Thad Young? Is that a sure deal already? Are we going to get him?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Thad Young, are we going to get him?
I would, you know what?
I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit.
And those are always topics we can't always touch on, right?
Yep, we can always touch on. Thank you for that. And Dominic, give us an overview of the gaming industry in Arizona and how really sports betting and of course fantasy sports now being legalized, how does that change the game, if you will?
Yeah, the Arizona jurisdiction has been strong in gaming. They've had a compact currently for over 25 years, and they just recently restated and amended it through a successful job of the tribes in the state of Arizona. It's produced a lot of revenue, a lot of tax revenue for the state, and it helps a lot of roads and education and things that extend beyond that. It's been highly regulated. I've been in multiple jurisdictions, and this jurisdiction by far really takes it serious, which we appreciate and we embrace. But it's a way to really have a really legal type of wagering that can happen. And with sports betting primarily, we're excited because it happens. It happens in other jurisdictions, other states, and it happens illegally. And now we're able to regulate it and keep it here in the home and keep the tax revenue here in the state of Arizona, which we're extremely proud of, and for the community of Gila River.
Would you say that it's one of the most highly regulated enterprises or industries in the whole country? What do you mean by that exactly? Can you flesh it out a little bit?
Yeah, KYC, know your customer, and responsible gaming is a big deal. And everybody on this call here, if you're in the gaming sector, you will know in sports betting, Matt's shaking his head, he will tell you responsible gaming is first and foremost in everything we do. We make sure that we are abiding by it. We make sure it's responsible and good entertainment. And we make sure that it's regulated. And they've done a good job. State of Arizona has done a really good job, and it's been founded, and they haven't deviated from it, which we appreciate.
Representative Whittinger, you're one of the architects of this law. How did you actually make it happen this year? You know, we've talked about sports gaming ever since the U.S. Supreme Court said, yep, we're going to allow this one. And of course, we're creating the regime for it. And we've talked about this one for a number of seasons already. How did it come about this year?
Well, yeah, you're right. It's been talked about. I've been talking about it and asking about it since I came into the legislature. Some people who follow me on Twitter reminded me of, like, in 2016 or 17 that I said I would work on it, because they were like, how are we one of the only states who can't even bet on fantasy sports? And they were so frustrated. But a lot of work, even before the session, between the tribes and the governor's office, really set, years of work really set the stage. And then the teams and pretty much everybody coming together. My co-sponsor, TJ Shope, in the Senate, we worked really hard with the governor's office, with all of our fellow legislators, but in a bipartisan way. We had super majorities in both houses. And it really was, I think, an example of how people of different parties, people of different backgrounds, the tribal nations, the teams, the legislators, the businesses outside of that, like DraftKings, everybody coming together for a purpose of getting this done. And I don't want it to be lost on people that a whole lot of constituents have been asking for this. A lot of constituents that aren't necessarily involved in politics, they're on sports, listen to sports radio, and they're like, what, we can't do this? And then it's kind of their first foray watching politics, and thankfully it got done.
Jason, can you tell us about your partnership with, I want to make sure I get this one right. You're partnering with FanDuel. How did that partnership come about? Tell us a little bit of the behind the scenes, who reached out to who? And I guess same question, how did it come about? How did that partnership,
Sure.
actually happen? Yes.
Yeah, sure. And I'd like to echo what what Representative Wenningerd said there. Looking back at the signing of the legislation in April, I think it was back in April when everybody came together, looking around the room, everybody from the tribes, everybody from both sides of the aisle, the various departments of government there, everybody coming together to sign the legislation. It was a pretty special moment, and just kind of looking around the room at all the people who had been involved in the process for such a long period of time. And so for us, we had been working with FanDuel for literally over about a year and a half prior to even the legislation coming into effect. So literally knowing that there was a potential that this could come online, in anticipation of that, we went out and spoke to various partners about potentially putting a deal in place, and knowing that with legislation, there's always a chance that it doesn't come to fruition, or that it doesn't end up creating the opportunities that you expect it's going to create. And luckily, with the leadership of so many great folks here in the state, we were able to get it put in place in a way that was really beneficial to so many. And again, I think as Dominic said, put together in a way that does really, in a lot of ways, create protections for people, does create a situation where you have responsible gaming, does create a situation where, for us, and it's extremely important that our games still have a family-friendly environment. So it's not like it just becomes nothing more than just sports betting, but it's just something that's additive to the experience, not just all about the sports betting, but obviously something that is more something that adds to that experience. So for us, working with FanDuel to really come up with both what happens here in the arena, because we are building out, and it will be open on September 9th, a retail sports book here in Footprint Center.
That's a physical kiosk, right?
That is well, more than a kiosk. It is a retail sports book, almost 3,000 square feet, with high resolution video screens, kiosks, fully operational. In terms of the hours of operation, I think we're going to run it from about 8 or 10 in the morning till about 11 at night, if I recall, and fully staffed. And for us, this is new. This is something we've never done before, obviously, and we're excited to be taking our first step into this. And then the secondary piece of it is the mobile piece that everybody who's a license holder will be able to participate in as well. So just exciting new ways to engage our fans in new ways, and very importantly, new ways to generate revenue for the state of Arizona, and engage potentially new sports fans that maybe if they're not interested in maybe watching a game for other reasons, maybe they are going to tune in for a game on a Tuesday night or a Monday night when they otherwise wouldn't have.
Well, thank you for that. And Matthew, sorry, I can't help but ask. I know there's a sport. DraftKings sponsored the Manny Pacquiao and the recent Manny Pacquiao fight, and of course, it was kind of heartbreaking for me to see him not win. But it was a good game. Can you place Arizona in a national context? Where are we in terms of sports betting? What has been your experience like in other states?
Well, the partnership, through the legislative process, it was extremely collaborative, really a best of breed process. All of the relevant stakeholders were in the loop. The communication was fluid. All factors were taken into account, and think we landed in a really great place to bring both daily fantasy sports betting, into the Arizona market. And I think it was mentioned earlier, Arizona was one of the few states where actually daily fantasy sports wasn't authorized. And most consumers think you should be able to play fantasy sports and you should be able to make sports bets. There's been a variety of referendums around the country where typically it's 70+% approval rate, from voters. And it's overwhelmingly popular. It's something that people are asking for. And by authorizing these two products, I think it's going to make a big impact, not only on satisfying the desires of Arizona residents, creating tax revenue, but also through projects like what Jason was just describing. DraftKings is doing a similar retail build out at TPC Scottsdale. It will create really good construction jobs, good operations jobs. to operate the sports betting facility there. It's going to be beautiful, best, one of the best sports books in the country. So, with the authorization of these products, I think it creates a lot of economic activity that's really exciting around Arizona.
Thank you for that. Dominic, I want to ask you, can you cite a couple of the tangible benefits, aside from the fact that, of course, fans can now participate legally participate in sports betting, as well as in fantasy sports, but tell us some of the benefits that people of Arizona should expect from this industry.
Yeah, I mean, in a casino, it's almost expected that you could sports bet, and we've been years without it. And so people come from other jurisdictions. I mean, we're a place where people come into vacation. I mean, during our high season, we have a lot of events going on, and people will come in, and we're one of the few cities that have all four major sports. And so they'd come to casino through casino intercepts, and they'd go, "Where's our sports betting? Where do we wager on sports?" And we're saying, "Well, we're not ready for it." The embracing that and bringing that to retail sportsbook like everyone's doing, there's enough pie to go around in the state. So we work well, and everybody, as everybody said, we've all worked together to embrace it, do it effectively, and do it right. But economically, we're hiring about 100 people to run these sportsbook for us. We're doing about 20,000 square feet in space in sportsbooks. We have 3 properties that we're looking to put these in to make sure that we cater to each market. So there's that. There's
Did you say 100 people? You're hiring 100 people? 100
folks to do the sportsbook operations. Yep.
And I'm supposing, Matthew, in your case as well, right? How many people do you anticipate you think you're going to be hiring for your retail sportsbook once it's fully functional and once it's open?
Yeah, that's about the right scale. We don't have the final number, but that's about right. Between, you have ticket writers, supervisors, sportsbook managers, security, a variety of different, job families are being created in and around TPC Scottsdale. In addition to all of the construction build out, which is going to be, a very substantial project.
And Dominic, in terms of just the salary base, an average, if you have kind of an average pay for somebody, maybe one of our audience is looking into, employment in this arena, what are we typically looking at in terms of the salary?
Median's usually about 18 to 20. Here at the casino, we're $15 an hour, no more than lower than that. So it's a good salary, and a lot of the sportsbook writers, as these gentlemen know, is that they're new to sports as well. Some of them are new to sports. This jurisdiction never honored it, so we're having to train them and embrace them and bring them in and teach them a new skill of how to do it. I will tell you, there's also an ambassador program that we're looking at doing. It's educating our consumer, because sports betting being so new, we find out, even myself, I'm learning new things as I go to the sports betting world. It's like, oh, okay, what's a parlay? What's an over and under? What's a straight up bet? All these things to really face-to-face educate them, where you can't. That's what we're going to embrace a little bit more, as the retail component versus the mobile side of it.
One of the big components, one of the big reasons for this law is the fact that in theory, it's going to undercut the offshore, the illegal sports betting market, right? That's one of the reasons why we have this law, is to capture the revenue from this in a parameter that works for us. When Representative Winiger, when you're talking to constituents as you're drafting this law, how much of a problem is the offshore illegal sports betting was or is in Arizona?
Well, I guess I would say I'm a lawmaker. I'm not an enforcer, but I'm astounded the amount of people who tell me that they bet offshore. I mean, astounded. It's a large amount. So I think it's an issue right now, and I think this is just bringing in a lot of those people. If I can touch a little bit on what was said, the economic development that these gentlemen said that's going to happen in their own right is substantial. But I think you have to look at other downstream effects. I mean, I know of 2 or 3 blogs and different Twitter accounts, and people who are putting out content based on this. Bars, if people are going to put a bet on a game, they're going to go to bars more and watch the game there. They might stay at games longer if they have in-game bets that are going on. So there might be more conventions in downtown. So more people are going to go to Suns games and have hotels because they're going to capture more of that. There is a substantial downstream effect to what this is, besides just the direct tax revenues from what we're talking about.
Thank you for that. And Jason, what do you anticipate in terms of economic development? By the way, I asked Matthew and Dominic about how many people they anticipate they will be hiring. In your case, once your retail sports book is your physical sports book is fully functional, how many staffers do you reckon you'll be hiring? And can you talk a little bit about the economic benefits of just having sports betting legalized in the state?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, in terms of staffing, very similar in scope. And when you think about the hours of operation, this building currently, we have about, call it 100 and, in a non-COVID environment, we usually have about 120 to 160 ticketed events during a year, which means that you have, a whole lot of dark days as well, where you don't have ticketed events, but you might have smaller events. Now you're going to have a operating sports book that is active essentially 365 days a year, that is facing one of the busiest streets in the entire metroplex here, including all the residential that's coming downtown that's being activated, all the bars and restaurants downtown. And to Representative Winger's point, as you have a sports book available here, and then the sports book that's being put in down, the Diamondbacks will eventually be putting in, you're going to have some additional critical mass where, as these events happen, you're certainly going to get people down, maybe coming down a little bit earlier before a game, staying a little bit later after a game, and even coming down on days where there isn't a game. So, example, we might not have a game on an NFL on a Sunday, but people might want to come down and be able to play some bets during NFL Sunday. And so you could see circumstances where we might take our entire pavilion, which is an additional 10,000 or 15,000 square feet, and open that up where we have 85,000 square feet of video board and the ability to bet mobilely through the app, as in addition to what we can do in the retail book, and activate that entire space on things like during the Super Bowl, during NCAA Final Four, all these tentpole moments in addition to our own game. So you just start thinking about all these great moments that people are naturally attracted to, just because of how exciting those moments are. And then you layer on top of it the ability to have this additional fan engagement and interaction. And it's not that, not everybody has to be putting huge bets down. It can be just kind of fun things and side bets and things you're doing with your buddies. Whatever it is, it's just an additional level of engagement that I think is going to be something that drives people to have just a higher level of excitement and attention to sports. And another thing that brings people together, which is great.
Luigi, if I can add on
Yeah,
representatives, he was Representative Zach exactly right. There's so many residual economic factors. I mean, drive down the highway and look at the billboards and out of home that's going on, and you can see the advertising dollars spent on billboards right now, and watch TV and you see the new content that's coming through. Those are all taxable revenues that are coming in for the state of Arizona. So it's more residual than we understand or even can see. But I'm excited to see what it calculates to at the end of the first year.
The estimated revenue once the industry matures, it's fully functional, it's all up and running, something like that, is around what, 34 million, something like that. Representative Winninger, you think that's a very conservative estimate?
Yeah, I believe that's what JLBC said and everything. I do think it's conservative, and I've always said I think it'll be north of that. And then I've also always said I think when you stack on all these other things, it's a substantial amount of revenues that can be, like was said earlier, can be used for good things like education and infrastructure.
Matthew, I want to ask you, I'm a complete novice when it comes to sports betting. I haven't sports bet before, and part of that is probably because it's illegal. It was illegal in Arizona. It was out of sight, kind of out of mind. But now there's some interest in me to just figure out how this thing works. Okay, walk us through, if some of our viewers and our listeners may be first time, a bit, or maybe just curious about how this whole industry works. All right, so I'm a novice. I don't really know what to do. Walk me through. How do I engage?
So to get started, you go to the App Store. Either if you have an iPhone, you can go to the Apple Store, the Google Play Store, download DraftKings Sportsbook. app. And the app sign up process is a few steps. It's not too long, but you have to go through a certain process to verify your identity. And that's really to meet the various requirements on KYC to make sure that you're of an appropriate age and that we kind of understand who you are. And those are our responsibilities. So it's a few steps, but it's not anything that's so onerous. And once you've done that, then the next step is just funding your account. You can make a deposit and make your first bet, which is, as little as 10 cents. So it doesn't have to be, like Jason was saying, a big thing. It can be something that's very small, just for fun with your friends. $1, $2, $5, these are our most common bet sizes. And with NFL starting, coming up very quickly here, next Thursday, I think, is the opening night game with Tampa Bay. And then also there's some really exciting college football going on. I think it's like Georgia, Clemson, 2 top 5 teams playing this upcoming weekend. So I think that'll be something that, we'll just kind of barely miss in Arizona, but looking forward to NFL, on the 9th. I think that'll be really the first foray in for an Arizona customer.
Dominic, what about physically going into a sports book? What does that look like for completely new to this industry for folks like me?
Yeah, we're going to provide the true casino experience that you would expect to get when you go into a jurisdiction that has sports betting integrated with the casino. So to be a retail sportsbook presence, we treat it as an amenity, a very high amenity that you can do the slots, tables, et cetera, that you would normally do at a casino, but you could happen to make a wager at the same time. So what we see this as is going in person. We'll have kiosks set up, so you could do it if you're a well-versed sports bettor. You could do it the kiosk platform quickly, or you can go to a cashier cage actually and do it in person and ask your questions as you need. You could take your ticket, then you go back to the floor, you can eat, etc. And then when that game is done, if you want to watch it, you can go back and you can cash it in. So both the usability of a kiosk platform, so you can do it quickly, but also the face-to-face content where if you have questions, you could do it there and learn about the progress.
Matthew, just real quick, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that, of course, when you're trying to identify yourself, you're putting in personal information, perhaps even a credit card, because obviously that's, or a debit card. Is it debit card, credit card, both?
Yeah, you could put in a credit card. That's the most common method. Also, like a ACH style bank account transfer is also available.
How do you ensure that the information is secure?
It's actually the highest standard of security. First, it's regulated so that there's a lot of sort of minimum standards that are established by the regulators, but we also go above and beyond what's required. We're PCI level 1 compliant in terms of the way that we manage our PII and our credit card information. So it's very, very secure, like the highest standard that's available in the market as far as credit card and data security. One of the components of this program, of course, is, let me back up a bit. Sports betting and fantasy sports now being legal in Arizona, we expect that there is going to be some, problem gaming that accompanies this one. Once there are more people are engaging in the sports or in sports betting, then we see potentially gaming problems as well. President Winninger, can you talk about how we intend or we anticipate to confront this potential problem in the state, both in the law that you just sponsored, but also what are your expectations of the industry?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have in there a continuation and somewhat expansion of what exists already at the tribal casinos as far as problem gaming. Sorry, phone call coming in. You can put yourself on an exclusion list to where you are automatically excluded for a certain amount of days or months, and basically all the operators have to update those and check those and put those in their databases. So there's a lot of protections like that. There's a fund that goes to help problem gaming and people who do that kind of thing. So I think the protections are there. It is a concern, just like with anything. But I remember the same concerns when I ran crowdfunding legislation my first year. where it basically allowed anybody to invest in a business. So to me, there's a fine line between watching it, being careful and knowing it's there, and just saying, well, this is only for wealthy people who can do this, and kind of excluding everybody out. And so that's something I always try to think of when I look at these things. I mean, to me, it's a little like the same things with IPOs and stuff. Only a certain amount of people who have a certain amount of money can do that. So to me, it's a careful balance, and I think it's there.
Well, what about in your case, Jason? I'm sorry, Dominic, you jumped in?
No, I can go after Jason. I was just going to echo what Representative was talking about with tribal casinos and what we've done.
Right. Let me go to Jason. Jason, what about in your case? What are the parameters in your program that allows you to kind of spot potential problems, and how are you going to manage them, confront them, help those folks who might have some gambling problems?
Basically, you follow the same parameters that are laid out in the legislation, which were carefully thought through. At the end of the day, it's somewhat similar to the issue of the integrity of the sport. To me, if you have something that's being regulated, you have a higher likelihood that there's going to be protections around it than you are when things are being done behind closed doors or in a closed market or in a more of a black market. So, to me, if you're in a position where you can have a higher level of education, you have funds that are being devoted directly towards addressing problem gambling, then you're in a better position than if you have people who are putting money on illegal gambling and nobody has any real visibility into it. So I think we're in a better position today than we were before this was in place.
Go ahead, Dominic. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, so they're both correct. Representative touched on the tribal side of it. We've done it for over 25 years, as stated before. It's not only the self-excluded list, but our employees. I mean, we have 3,000 employees, and all tribes do this. They have to take training. They have to go through class, and annually they have to take training on how to identify responsible gaming or problem gamblers. So it's not just individuals that feel like they have a problem self-excluding themselves. It's us identifying just based on behavior or spending habits. I mean, know your customer. We're asking some of our customers where they work, what they do, how do they verify their income. It's an obligation that we have to make sure that it's safe and secure. So we've done it. We've had to exclude individuals for behavior or habits. And we do it extremely well, and we've done it successfully, I would say, for over 20 years. So the partnership that we have, and Jason and I, we have a partnership as well through the casino deal that we have. And so, Jason may reach out to us and ask us, what are you guys doing to make sure it's regulated? So it echoes what everybody's been saying. It's been a collective group and a collaboration to make sure this is done successfully. And responsible gaming is at the top of all this.
And Matthew, what about in the case of apps? What are your controls there? How do you know, for example, give us an idea of how you would know that potentially a customer might have some problems, and then how you would deal with that potential problem?
Yeah, there's an array of both proactive and reactive measures. On the proactive side, it's a variety of various, controls on your account, whether it's self-exclusion, time limits, deposit limits. Consumers control a dashboard that lets them set and customize all of those limits for their account. And we don't bury it on the site. We're advertising it. We're trying to drive adoption of these tools. We're putting it on our social media. We're putting it in our advertising campaigns. So it's really a focus not to kind of push it to the side, but really to raise it to the forefront. And then on the more reactive side, if we're able to detect various patterns or behaviors that are consistent with responsible gaming concerns, then we're able to take action, even if it's a little bit, it's not as obvious, just due to the vast amount of data that we have. We're operating, hundreds of thousands of customers in over 10 states now with sports betting. We have just tremendous data around, various consumer behaviors, and we're able to understand if there's some behavior that's consistent with responsible gaming, we're able to intervene, put pauses on accounts, put restrictions in place from a consumer protection standpoint. It's one of the biggest benefits really of the digital platforms now that are really raising to the forefront is like all of this wealth of data and ability to detect responsible gaming.
Thank you for that. In theory, and correct me if I'm wrong, in theory, we're gonna probably corner some of the business that's going to Las Vegas, for example. Obviously we're, many Arizonans probably go to Vegas. Well, not probably, go to Vegas over the weekend. They do their sports betting there. In theory, we keep them here in the state. But Representative Whittinger, what are your thoughts about, how much of that, what it calls the revenue that's going to Nevada right now is potentially going to stay in our state?
Yeah, I think you'll have a combination of things. I think you'll have a combination of people maybe not going to Vegas as often. I think you'll have, when we have big events here, like Cactus League, when people might go up to Vegas for one of those weekends or a week of the month that they're here from Cactus League, that they won't, they'll bet on March Madness here, which will generate that whole week or 3 days of extra revenue for that one person. I do think we'll capture more of those, mega events. I think we'll be, the Phoenix Open and these guys doing that DraftKings, that's a wild fest anyway. Now you're going to have that there. You're going to have the book on site. They're going to be able to just engage and light up so many different events and things around that. I think it could help us get more of the mega events as well, because we're going to have this infrastructure all over the valley in place and at more event spaces and stuff just because of this bill, that it might mean we get an extra mega event every 2 years, whether it's a Final Four or Super Bowl or whatever. That will help out a lot.
What you're saying is an extra tool in our arsenal as we try and track these big events. But Jason, I want to talk to you about that really as well. Your arena is a venue for all kinds of events, and I think last night you just had Guns N' Roses over there. You had how many people? 13,000 people, something like that. What are your expectations as well? To what extent does this, the fact that we now have sports betting legalized in the state, to what extent do you think that would draw in, the events that you had last night, all kinds of events, but also the big sporting events, on a, year round?
Yeah, I think like last night, the concert wraps up at about 11 o'clock, and that's an opportunity that you could potentially extend the hours of your sports book if it was open, and you probably would have had a number of people stay later and hang around a little bit longer. You could have certainly have people come down a bit earlier and get here even earlier than the concert started. But again, it just extends your window of opportunities for people to come downtown and spend more time down here. And to the point of attracting larger events and some of these larger tentpole events, the one that I think of that's more close to home for us, for example, is NBA All-Star. So you start looking at the potential of attracting that type of an event. And for our building, which just went through a $250 million renovation, and NBA All-Star being available in 2025 and 2026, well, that's about a 4-day event for that window, and you have people coming in from all over the country to downtown Phoenix potentially if we're able to attract that event. Having sports books here available in downtown Phoenix would be something that certainly the organizers of NBA All-Star would certainly look at that as a benefit as well. So that's just another example of the types of things that this really is additive to.
I want to ask just a couple other questions about how to participate, how to engage, how to actually make a bet. So for example, and Matthew, this is probably a question for you. Are there limits for private fantasy sports contests?
There's a whole spectrum of entry fees for fantasy. Our most common amounts are $3, 25 cents. Those are the most popular. And there's a whole scale up to higher and higher levels that people will choose to play. And it's really customizable based on what, interests are of the player.
I think Representative Whittinger mentioned parlays, over under bets. What's a parlay? What's an over under bet? And what, again, I guess the question is what types of wagers will be available to Arizonans?
Yeah, absolutely. It's vast. The most common bets, like let's use NFL to start, you can pick on what they call the money line. It's whoever is going to win the game outright. We also lay point spreads on all of the games. So we'll predict how many points a team is expected to win by. And you can guess if you think that, one team will do better than that. The over under is how many total points will be scored in the game. So in an NBA game, it's whatever, 210 points, something like that. Depends on who's playing and the conditions of the game, and you can predict over or under the point total. Then there's a whole spectrum of different game propositions, player propositions. So things like who will score the first touchdown, which athlete, which team will score first, will there be a touchdown in the last 2 minutes? So lots of different predictions, and that's really what our consumers like to do, is just predict things, try and outwit the numbers that we put out there in the sports book. A parlay is a really popular form. That's like if you want to have a potential to win a higher payout, people will try to predict multiple things in one ticket. So you might want to try to predict 4 games all in one ticket, and you'll get that kind of compounding payout, because if you get them all right, it's kind of hard to do. So you get a higher payout, like a 10-to-1 type payout if you can get 4 games on a ticket. So just an example of what's out there.
Dominic, I want to ask you. So I'm a soccer fan. I watch the European Soccer League. If I go to your casino, I go to one of your kiosks. Am I able to bet on let's say the Premier League? There's a championships game or something like that. They're broadcasting their game to the United States. What are the parameters? Am I allowed to do it? And what are the parameters of me being able to participate or engage in that? Looking at sports events from other countries.
Absolutely. So you'll definitely will be able to bet on those and wager on them. You could do it once the points are put up and the spread's put up, and you can start wagering on them. So even if it's a week out, you can make your wagers and you can hold on that ticket until the game happens. I mean, as you know, that league in soccer, if you're up at 2:00 in the morning, 1:00 in the morning, you're going to be able to see it. Other than that, you can make it ahead of time. But yeah, I mean, at Major League Sports, I mean, if you have it, you'll be able to wager on it.
That was an interesting thing when this legislation was first being discussed. There was a lot of confusion that because the teams were going to be the license holders, a lot of people thought that the only sport you'd be able to bet on was the sport of the license holder. So I used to get
right. That was my initial thought as well.
So if you're here in Footprint Center, you can only bet on NBA games or on WNBA games. And it's like, no, that's not the case. You can bet on any sport like you would in any sports book in Vegas or anywhere else where a sports book is authorized. So that there was certainly some confusion about that early on in this process.
So just to be clear, you go to a Suns game, right? You go to your sports book, and there might be another game that's playing, in Italy, for example. It's their Serie A, their Premier League over there, and I can just do that. So it's not limited to just the Suns game. The sports, the partnerships that you have, really what it does, it allows you the platform so that everybody can come in and they can bet on any of the game that's happening.
That's correct.
Are there, I think President Winninger, I want to ask you, are there types of wagers, if that are prohibited, for example, that you can't wage on? And maybe it's a question for Matthew or Dominic, but I wonder if you put some parameters on that as well in the law that you passed.
I'll start it off and then they can get more into the details. We did have concerns from the NCAA, from our universities here in Arizona. We kind of did a compromise. They at first just didn't want it at all. And we basically took it down to where it couldn't be individual stats and statistics in game that you could bet on, to where you're betting on one player that they're going to either get 100 yards or not 100 yards. I believe we still allow for like Heisman Trophy and stuff like that, where it's an individual, but they don't necessarily control that. There's a whole lot of other people in control, but mainly just took it down from that. You can still bet on the teams and combination of points and multiple teams to win, but just not individual statistics in NCAA.
What's the reason for that?
Well, they thought these are young, impressionable, people who aren't being paid, since they can, though, for their likeness, which was kind of cool. And we had a bill, TJ Shoke, my bill sponsor, had that bill this year, and then it just went nationwide anyway. But was that maybe they could be easily influenced because they're not a paid player and they're in college. Maybe they aren't going on to pros. So we kind of compromised and said, we still want collegiate sports to be in there, but we'll take out the individual in-game achievements.
And Dominic or Matthew, just to be clear, you can't bet on injuries, right? Injuries, penalties, as well as high school events. That's off the table.
Correct.
That's right. That's pretty standard. It's not something that is, not standard in other markets either. It's a totally reasonable, restriction, we think. And, every state does it a little differently, but I think the rules of the road in Arizona are very fair. And being able to work with gaming, the regulatory body is such a great, entity to collaborate with. Our team is in constant communication. It's not a do it, then ask for forgiveness later thing. It's the total opposite. Like, we're not going to take any chances on putting out, markets that are not okay with gaming. So having a great relationship there and a collaboration is very important. And our team is set up that way to kind of have the right approval processes.
And what about horse racing? Are you able to go to a Phoenix Suns game and and then bet on a horse race there? Would you know, Jason?
You know what? That's a good question. I'd probably have to talk to our partners at FanDuel and see if that is available there.
I can answer that. It is very tough to find. I couldn't even find it, but this is something that I was getting from people I know and from the industry. And so it is in the bill that basically right now on horse racing, you pick up a phone and you have to call a number and then you press 1 to do this, and it's like 10 steps. It's insane. And so in this legislation, it basically says on horse racing, you can use the same technology that you're doing in these other sports. So it's up for a platform to adopt it or put it out there, or one of these individual services where you bet just on horse racing, but you will be able to bet in the same manner now on horse racing mobily that you can on all sports.
And thank you for that. I want to talk about the revenue that's coming to the state. Right there, the expectation is at least or around 34 million by fiscal year 2024. The expectation is at that point, the industry has matured. Representative Whittinger, talk to us about how the revenue for the state is actually distributed. So once we get the money, where does the money go to?
Well, there's 2 components to that. So on one thing that we haven't touched upon, that Dominic can talk about if you want, is they did get expanded games and stuff and limits, which I think is really good, at the casino. So craps and roulette, live.
Keno, right? Keno as well.
Keno as well, not only there in horse tracks, but in we made sure to get again the service organizations in it. The American Legion does incredible things for the community, and this helps them get more money out into the community. So you can do Keno as well, but basically, yeah, all those expanded games and stuff that goes through the same waterfall that we go on right now from the casinos. The sports betting, all that money goes directly into the general fund, which gives us more flexibility to, if we need a lot more money in education this year, we can do it.
So it's not earmarked for specific programs, right? It goes to the general fund and you can do whatever you want to do at that point.
Yes.
Dominic, Representative Whittinger talked about, expanded gaming as well. We haven't really talked about expanded gaming, focus on sports betting, but in this law, we have expanded gaming, and the expectation as well is that when we expand gaming, we're going to, in theory, generate more revenue.
Yeah, it's an exciting complement that was added in this bill, and for a long time we've been able to offer craps, roulette, and baccarat as a part of the casino. And if it's any look or any foresight into how sports betting is going to do, we are seeing that these new games that are offered in Nevada are starting to steal market share from the Las Vegas market.
Is that right?
So more people are staying put in this area and not making their trips to Vegas because they can get the same offering here inside the casino. So if it's any insight of what sports betting is going to do, we are seeing it right now with these new games offered at the casino. And it's a help to embrace for the community. He would have been a community with the COVID pandemic and everything that happens. We had to tighten the straps a little bit. And so this additional revenue stream for us not only helps the state, but it also helps the Native community to produce more revenue for them. We contribute 8% of our total revenues that go back to the state annually every year, and it's continually been doing that. On top of that, they contribute 12% of that to nonprofits and other efforts around the state. So there's a lot of components that get touched, nonprofits primarily, in the jurisdiction, the state of Arizona, that feed off the gaming revenue, and as well as the Gila River Indian community.
I want to go to some of our audience questions. There's a couple of them. One question here is that I think Dominic, you just touched on this one. For the tribal governments participating in sports betting, will sports betting revenue count toward the 12% that is then distributed to grants? And I think you just mentioned that is the case, correct?
Correct.
Here's another question. I guess this is for you as well. Will there be any mobile sports betting on tribal lands in tribal casinos? I think the answer is yes also.
That is, we're working through it right now, and we're looking at what the proper platform is. Through BetMGM, we do offer the platform. We're just working on the details. It's something that's new for us. We want to make sure we do our diligence and do it right. So right now we're working through the process of what that looks like.
Representative Winiger, here's a question for you. Does you mentioned about the technology gap, if you will, with current horse racing and placing a bet there. Does this mean a horse betting bettor can use their computer to place bets as opposed to current requirements to use their phone to place a bet?
Yeah, and what that person's referring to on a phone isn't like what we're talking about on an app. They're essentially calling a number on their phone and then pushing the numbered buttons, and it's a tedious process. So yeah, I don't think there's any difference between using a laptop or using an app on the phone. It's just that companies have to deploy those and have to know that there's a market for it, which I'm sure somebody will, whether it's one of these gentlemen or if it's just somebody else who just deals with horse racing.
Here's a question, I guess, for Matthew from Keith. Keith says, when does it actually start? And it looks like he can't deposit money into DraftKings. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So you can download the app right now, which I would recommend doing. I think it makes sense to, get your account set up. You don't want to wait till there's 2 minutes before the game and try to, go through the process for the first time. It's not that hard, but you don't want to put yourself in that position. So you can download it right now, put in, name, address, last four of social, a few things, just the KYC stuff, get your account set up. And, on the 9th of September, that'll be really the first day that you'll be able to place a bet. So you can browse, you can see what's available on the site, make a plan about, what you're thinking about the NFL games or the parlay ticket you want to put in or whatever it is. You can do that right now. We also have a lot of free-to-play pools. So right now you can jump in a variety of different free offerings and try the platform before the 9th. And that's something that I would also recommend checking out on the pools tab. And then finally, on the daily fantasy sports side, right now that's open. So anybody who wants to play fantasy, it's new to Arizona this football season. Really, really glad that we were able to get, that offering up and running. Appreciate all of the support, from the legislature, from the regulators to get that up before football. And, we're running lots of really big prize pools. We have $1 million top prize NFL fantasy contest for week 1. Somebody's going to win that. So, we'll see what happens. Excited to be in market though.
Did you say $1 million is up for grabs?
Yeah, somebody will win $1 million for a fantasy sports contest. It costs $20 for an entry. And so not like anything too crazy. It's a little bit. I know that that's not $1, but it's reachable, and the potential to win $1 million is vast. So really like the offering there. It's our most popular fantasy contest during NFL season.
Here's a question from Russell. If Gila River Casino determines a person is a problem gambler, is that information then shared with other casinos?
Absolutely, it is. There's a statewide data pool that goes into, so everybody gets the same. We all work off the same platform and the same list that's shared.
Yeah. Luigi, that's something that is tight. The regulators have been brought up here. Our regulators are really good. You don't find me praising regulators very often. They're strong, they're stern, but they talk to them and talk through things. But that was a key point of that database and being updated and everybody having the same information.
That's not, just to be clear, optional. It's not like here's a list, FYI. You must if you restrict yourself on any platform, all of the other platforms must restrict you as well.
We've been using that for 20 years. The database has been there for 20 years. We've been accessing it for a long time.
And we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask Jason. Jason, what are your expectations for the Phoenix Suns in the upcoming NBA season?
Oh, who wouldn't want to win a ring, right? Look, we had a great run last year. It was exciting for the city. It was great for our community and for our fans. It was terrific, particularly coming out of COVID, just to be a real shining spot. Just to be such a source of excitement for so many people. And the fact of the matter is, we were able to bring back Chris. We were able to really kind of fortify our roster. Our guys have, and before we got on the call here, I was just kind of relaying to the gentleman on the call here that our young guys have a level of experience now, having been all the way to the finals, that some guys in the league might wait until their late 20s or early 30s before they ever experience, if at all. And so to have our young core guys already have had that experience running up to the finals, there's never any guarantees in professional sports at all. Takes a little bit of luck, takes timing. Everybody's got to stay healthy. The West is always going to be highly competitive, but I'll put our chances up against anybody coming this year. And the fact of the matter is, the most important thing is we've got guys who are high character. They like to play together. They believe in each other, and that's important. And you really saw it last year that there are a bunch of guys that are fun to watch and easy to cheer for and easy to like. And that's what we really tried to build, is finding people and players who are both talented but also have high character and integrity. And we made a commitment to look for both of those attributes, not just one or the other. And I think James and Monty have done a good job building that with Robert's support. So hopefully we're able to, carry it on this coming season. And it's right around the corner. October 6th is our first preseason.
Right, you have a truncated rest time, right? Because you have an extended season, and then of course it's coming out.
It feels like it's been
quickly.
3 compacted seasons in a row, with the bubble at the end of the 1920 season, and last season starting late and a little compressed. And going late, and then this season getting back onto our normal schedule, starting in mid-October and running through the beginning part of June with the playoffs. So should be an exciting year and exciting time to be a Suns fan. So excited, and obviously excited to have the sports book opening up and all the things that come along with that. So great time to be a Suns fan.
And with that, we are out of time. I think this is a good time to end our discussion. Jason, I want to thank you for your time again. Matthew, thank you so much for your participation. Dominic, thank you as well. And Representative Winninger, thank you. I hope your business is picking up. And I wish everybody a good day. And with that, I want to say thank you, our sponsors again, FanDuel, DraftKings, and BetMGM. For engaging with us this way. To our viewers and to our listeners, we will be posting a video of this recording at some point today or first thing tomorrow morning. And with that, enjoy the rest of your day, and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.